and then pause it. If you open it big, you should be able to pause at the top. No, you hit stop. You gotta hit the two instead of the solid one.
This one on the Apple web service in here. It's not on the desktop. That I could find easily.
It's not.
Okay,
It's just on.
okay, that's not gonna be.
Just.
Okay. They're two at different.
Okay, well, it is 5:30 and Julie, you're not seeing Austin logged in yet?
No.
Okay, so you might join us at some point. So I guess we can get started. So looks like someone's logging in. Oh, that's correct. Okay. All right. So this is a meeting of the Public Works Committee for the Village of Shorewood Hills. Today is Tuesday, September 10th. At 2024, it's 5:30 p.m. and we're here at Village Hall, and we're also live on Zoom and also broadcasting to Facebook. All right, so I'll go ahead and do the roll call. So we have Rick Chappelle is excused, absence. And then we have Austin is possibly not present, though he may join later. We have myself, Rob Stanky, we have Bob Corbett, Tim Vanderjugd, Tom Popkowitz, and Christine Maxon Harrow from the committee. We also are joined by Village Engineer Brian Bergquist and the DPW Superintendent Terry Hanschke. We also have Brian Mooney, our village administrator, in the crowd. And then Julie Willis is our recording secretary. All right, so Julie, are we in compliance with the open meeting law?
Yes, it's been posted.
All right. So item number 4 is approval of the minutes. We actually have two sets of minutes to approve. I just noticed here. Is that going to be a problem if we approve both sets, even though it's not listed on the agenda?
I think we can only do the July ones.
Okay, so we'll have to approve the July 9th meeting minutes, and then we'll have to postpone the August 27th approval of the minutes till the next time we meet. So is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from July 9th, 2024?
Sure.
All right, Tim. Do we have a second? Christine? Okay. You approve the motion, raise your hand or say aye. Okay, the motion is approved. So minutes are approved. Okay, now we enter a time of public comments. Doesn't look like we have anyone from the public, either in person or on Zoom. Is that correct, Julie?
That's correct.
Okay. So we will then go ahead and move on from public comments. All right, so item number 6, we have a possible update from Superintendent Terry Hanschke. You have anything for us, Terry?
Just a few things. Some things we got done since last meeting. Got a good start on our sewer jetting. Probably 3/4 done with that. We've flushed all fire hydrants in the village. Exercised all the street bells on the east side. We do those.
Hey, Terry, do you mind stopping for a second? So Julie, we do have Austin now joining the meeting, so if you could just make a note of that. Okay.
Got it.
Thanks, Terry. Go ahead.
So street bells on the east side have been exercised. We've completed all line painting, crosswalks and stop bars and other miscellaneous line painting we do. The all city swimming's wrapped up. We were helping with that setup and cleanup, and from our point of view, everything went very well with that. I've heard a lot of positive feedback, so that was a good event. Just this past week, I have had a contractor in here replacing some heaved sidewalks and also grinding other sidewalks. I had a company come in and they did a big assessment, told me what they could grind versus what needed to be replaced. I had a limited budget to work with, so we got about, I don't know, maybe about half the bad ones done. I picked the worst ones on the most traveled sidewalks to get done. So next year I hope to finish those up. But that's something that's been neglected the last few years, so it was good to get caught up on some of those. We have a new guy starting on our crew in a couple of weeks. He is currently going through CDL class. Otherwise he probably would have started by now, but he's going ahead to get the CDL, so we look forward to that. We're gonna be busy with leaf season coming up, so it'll be a good time to get somebody in here. Drained the pool this week, started the winterization process there. And then we're just prepping for leaf season, I guess. We haul a few leaves to the UW garden, so we have to help. It's kind of a negotiation we have to move some of their weeds around and shuffle leaves around and mix the piles up. So we got that done this week. Other than that, yeah, just some future items. We need to get some storm catch basins cleaned out. Another thing that we are a little behind on. And then, like I said, getting we got a new leaf picker, so I need to get that set up. Building a basket for it and different controls, and there's quite a bit to that. So I've been working on that. And then, yeah, just helping the forester. He's down a guy. And he has lost all his summer help, so we've been helping him when we can, clean out rain gardens and pruning for street signs and stuff. And then coming up, just winterizing park shelters. I hate to think about that, but that's a month away. Boat lifts. And then me and Brian are sort of starting to work on our budget, getting close to finalizing that, but that's what's been keeping me busy. That's it on the list. Any questions? Pretty self-explanatory this time of year.
All right, thanks, Terry. We really appreciate everything that you and your crew do for the village. Are there any comments or questions from the
I
rest of the
love the
committee?
last meeting, and we put the signs up, literally put them up the next day, I think, the signs by the crosswalk. Yeah, it's like they were up by 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've noticed all the stuff you've been doing. Thank you.
Yeah, I have gotten a lot of comments from parents very positive comments about what you've done at that crosswalk. So.
Yeah, so I just want to briefly talk about that. Is that on the agenda? I don't think it is, but
Well, I mean, it's part of your ongoing activities. If you have anything you want to say about that.
we decided not to go with the flashing stop signs for now. Mainly budget, and we had a little bit of feedback worrying about when they'd be flashing and when they wouldn't. So to get a fully programmable stop sign, it was going to be quite expensive. I got one bid, and Brian and Tim received a few bids. In my opinion, I put the orange attention flags up for $100. I think they do about the same job as a flashing stop sign, so that's what we're trying for now. If we want to bring it back up next year, we can, but this is a good starting point to see how they work. I haven't had a chance to talk to Teresa. I want to talk to her someday, but I think she'll be happy with the little bit we've tried to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did speak to her. She was very appreciative of
Okay.
that. One thing, if I can just suggest something, she did say that some of the vegetation at that intersection is preventing her from having good sight lines when the kids are approaching the
Okay.
crosswalk. So
I know
that might be-
Patrick was there today doing some trimming. So
Okay, so
I'll pass
that may
it along.
already be resolved, so.
Yeah. And those are two of the main rain gardens we need to get cleaned out too, so.
Yeah. Great, yeah, well, I think it's great to see this progress on that intersection, and this could be something that the village looks at more if we are able to get the Safe Streets grant, because that would be that, plus there's, half dozen other areas of interest that we might want to look at as part of a comprehensive plan to improve the safety of our streets, so.
Do you think we can also look at the flashy stop signs that are button activated? if we start to get pricing on those, because otherwise I feel like if it's flashing all the time,
So you mean like for a crosswalk activation or to activate the stop sign?
just so, people have some other, indication that there's gonna be somebody in the crosswalk.
Yeah,
If it's flashing all the time, I'd be afraid that, people just ignore it.
yeah, I mean, it's all things we can put into consideration. During the busy rush hour, I think they'd be flashing all the time,
Right.
but yeah, definitely something we can look at. I worry a little bit with the solar stop signs of them getting enough sunlight right there
Mhm.
and constantly be changing batteries out on our end. So another reason I want to try these flags first is to see what happened and before we spend a ton of money and we really don't know a lot about them. So
Mhm.
we are blessed and also unblessed with all the shade around. So
All right, any further comments or discussion? Okay, thanks again, Terry. All right, so item number 7. So we have the announcement of the Wisconsin Stormwater Week. So this was something that was brought to our attention from our village administrator, Brian. And so just to give a little bit of background, so this website, rippleeffects.com, is part of the Dane County, it's part of Dane County. It refers to, what is it, trying to remember the exact organization. You remember, Brian?
The acronym is AMSWA.
Madison Area Stormwater,
Stormwater Partnership.
there you go.
You guys remember.
That is a mouthful. So this partnership is municipalities within Dane County who are sort of banding together to take interventions to try and improve the quality of the stormwater. Because that stormwater goes into our lakes. So it's important for communities to think about, what is getting flushed down our stormwater pipes and into our lakes. So Wisconsin Stormwater Week is coming up in a couple of weeks. And you can find all about it at rippleeffects.com. In the packet for this meeting, I have some of the events listed. So there's some family activities. There's a plant kit sale and native gardening workshop. So these are all things that members of the community can participate in. Native plants are important. They don't need to be watered nearly as frequently as non-native plants. They help to purify the water. Rain gardens are things that kind of filter out particulate that would otherwise be flushing potentially down the stormwater system. Downspouts and rain barrels, those are also other ways that we can keep, not to overwhelm our stormwater system. So additionally, we have a salting workshop, which is important because obviously the more salt we use, the higher the salinity of our lakes gets, which is a problem for for lots of reasons, but especially for the life that is in our lakes. So there's all kinds of interesting activities that the community might want to participate in. So please, for committee members, make sure that your neighbors know about this as well. For any of the people online who might be in or watching it on Facebook, you can find out all about this event at rippleeffects.com. So I don't think we need to really have a discussion about that. It was mostly just an announcement. So we'll move on to agenda item number 8. So future agenda items, procedures, discussion. So I wanted to include this because we've had some suggestions, obviously, for future agenda items. I want to make sure that your guys' voices are heard. So what I'd hopefully like to do is kind of mirror what we're doing with the Board of Trustees, where a member of this committee can request a certain item be included in a future agenda. And so that's what what some of you have done. We have listed in agenda item 13, some of those suggestions. And it would be up to the responsibility of that person, that member who made the suggestion, to sort of facilitate the discussion on that item, if that makes sense. And so what I'd like to do is, if that sounds agreeable to you, in between this meeting and our next meeting, I can reach out to you individually and check in with you on these agenda items that have been suggested. And see, is this something that you would like to pursue at the next meeting? Do you want to hold off to a future meeting? Is this something that you don't need to discuss anymore? We can strike it out. So if that sounds agreeable to the committee members, what do you guys think? Is that a good way to kind of work through these topics? Okay. Yeah. Austin, do you have any thoughts about that? Does that sound good? You're on mute still, Austin. Yep.
Pardon me. Yeah, I think that sounds like a good plan. Taking some ownership of the action items.
Great.
Did we pass up any future discussion on additional like street discussions already, or is that coming up later? I had one that is kind of an amendment to like just a previous item we've been talking about. It's at Rose Place and University. They had put up temporary stop sign, temporary signs that it's like no turn on red.
Yeah.
I'm curious if we could initiate a discussion internally and also externally, what you guys think about it, about amending that sign to be like no turn on red during certain hours, just because of the volume of traffic it's kind of pushing in different directions throughout the village. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, why don't we
intersections start to back up quite a bit now?
Yeah, why don't we revisit that in agenda item 13, and if that's something you want to pursue as something we can talk about at a future meeting. I know that that's obviously a new thing, and just to give a brief little statement on that, those signs were put up in coordination with the city of Madison for the new BRT stations, which obviously the BRT will start running on September 22nd. And so those no turn on red signs are there to protect the pedestrians using those stations. But that's just like kind of a brief explanation of why those signs went up. But that's certainly something that we can talk about. So
yeah, like certainly, and I'm not against the signs. I think they're necessary. My daughter crosses there all the time, but I just thought if we put some reasonable hours on there, maybe it might solve some of the traffic issues long term.
All right, so everybody feels good about the procedure for how to resolve these future agenda items. Okay. All right, so number 9 is discussion possible action on Public Works Capital Improvement Plan. So Brian, we had some homework. Don't know if you've gotten enough responses to kind of make sense of that, or if we need some more time potentially.
I got 2
Okay.
highlighted. I will, if I may, just share what we had sent and suggest maybe I just send it again.
Mhm.
And I think this would be a good opportunity to walk the committee through what we had sort of conceived of as a workflow to get the capital plan created.
Well, let me just say, like, I think it's okay that we didn't have everybody complete it. And we can just kick this down a little bit and pick it up at the next meeting. But I will say that, when I did this, it probably took me about 20 to 25 minutes to go through this with Google Maps or Apple Maps. And I found it to be a really nice way to learn about some of the streets and nooks and crannies of the village. So I would encourage the members to complete this, and then now Brian's going to walk us through what we need to do.
Yeah, I
So,
looked at it right before this meeting and I was
No sweat,
confused,
no
so
sweat
I
at all.
didn't know what to do.
This is a good opportunity to kind of introduce people to it formally. So a dozen or so years ago, the village had us come up with a long-range capital plan, they called it at the time, and it was looking at every street we have, just like this spreadsheet starts with. And looked purely at how do your streets decay over time? And the public works guys have been logging street condition every other year. They rate every street on a 1 to 10 system. And that allows you to have a real good handle on how long did it take a street to go from 10 to 9, 9 to 8, 7 to 6, and so on and so forth. And we just plotted all that out. And the village board declared, we'd like to, we can probably accommodate, I think at the time it was $600,000 a year of street fund spending. Put it in there, Brian, and see how it goes. And it kind of cascaded, but it cash flowed. It was about right for the average pavement the village wanted to do. And that's when you started as a village to do the east side projects. Some exception, most everything was Shore Boulevard to the east. As those projects were going along, they were prioritized also by stuff that was happening underground. At sewers, water main breaks, poor drainage, that kind of thing. In addition to some other considerations, we were able to secure a Safe Routes to School grant, for example, for Columbia. So Columbia rocketed to the top, and it had some free money to build the sidewalks along Columbia. Fast forward over time, and a number of projects that were not contemplated in that cash flow exercise, namely University Avenue Part 1, which was in the 2009, that went over budget. That was a city village project. And then this one coming up, or that's just finishing, we're on the radar, and the village got to a point where you did not have enough money to continue that rate of spending. So that's when the decision was made in 2015 and 16 to use the last part of the borrowing package that you had and resurface pretty much everything else. So almost all the other streets in town were resurfaced on the west side, with the idea that it'd be revisited in 10 or 15 years once you were able to return to stable financial picture, and those streets would likely have also degraded from their pristine 10 rating down to a 9 or an 8 or 7 or 6. So here we are. We were asked to get started on a CIP effort late last year, and then there were some staffing transitions and committee transitions, so it kind of stalled out. But where we left it was this, which is a spreadsheet of every street segment that you're responsible for as a village. There is a length, a width, and a pavement rating. That's your most recent pavement rating. The Whistler year column is a software called the Wisconsin Information System for Local Roads. Got lots of acronyms for you there. That is just a software package that recommends to communities, well, if you had $1, you should spend it on this road first, as opposed to this other road, because the software recognizes that, streets that are right at a 6, with a little bit of TLC can get launched back to a 10, but if they get down to a 5 or a 4, pretty much got to rebuild the whole thing. That Whistler year should come with a grain of salt, and that's namely all it cares about. That program is surface. That has no knowledge of the water main's junk, or the sewer's bad, or your drainage is awful, or there's a desire for speed humps or something else. This is where you all come in. If you head towards the right, there are a number of columns called project scoring. And we found success in just getting some quick yes or no. Do you think this street has some pedestrian or bike needs, yes or no? And not asking you to give it anything more than a 0 or a 1.
So
I saw you
that,
cheated and put a 2 on one of them.
I'm sorry to
Was that-
interrupt.
I saw you cheated and put a 2 on one of them.
Oh, that's a typo. Two sidewalks.
So in column AG, we're just giving our opinion. Does it need?
Yeah, do you feel like there's a need for a ped or bike amenity that does not currently exist? And
Okay,
it
so
doesn't
even if it would
mean
be
that-
like an improvement on a current one, or
Does it need improvement at all?
that's a 1?
Yep. And what I would suggest is, this is a gargantuan task. If on the technical side, Terry and I get locked in an arm wrestling battle of should it have 4 fire hydrants or 5 fire hydrants, we'll just never get done. So on the water main side, we just look at well, if you look at row number 19, which is item right here, we've just come up with a very rudimentary. If it has a water main break history, if the pipe is older than 50 years old, or the main size is less than 6 inches or less, which is an undersized main, it gets a 1. Move on to the next one. And we can worry about, does it need 5, 6 fire hydrants if the village decides it's a project that it wants to do. Once we have that information parallel with that, we just come up with cost estimates. You know, we do enough projects for communities in and around the area that we have a pretty good handle on what does it cost to replace a water main. And we put a contingency on it so that it covers the 5 fire hydrants or 6 fire hydrants thing. And then we could assign some very rough, admittedly blunt instrument tool of which streets do you want to do? So for now, it's on the street score. If we kind of go in order, we've assigned a 0 points if it's a 6 or higher, on the premise that we don't get a lot of complaints on streets that are 6 or higher. So there's kind of a communal feeling that a 6 is decent enough. So that gets 0 points. If you're a 5 or a 6, you get 1. If you are a 4, you get 2 points. And if you're 3 or less, you get 3 points. Arbitrary, yes. But that's how it's set up for the moment. Projects with known sanitary sewer problems, bellies in the pipe, root intrusion issues, backups along that street, they get a point. If not, they get 0. Water main, similarly, storm sewer / drainage. If Terry or I have knowledge of, boy, that puddles really badly, or it's an ice rink in the winter because it doesn't drain very well, let's give that a 1. And at the moment, I'm asking for a knee jerk from each of you of, does it need something more than is there now? Because that'll help us make a cost estimate for it. It's a bit of a stab. What you've got, as you can see, there's 80 blocks of stuff. So we're trying to come up with a way to rapidly digest things and get some information back to you all for of the things that we've identified as needs, whether it's for pavement or drainage or water main or sanitary sewer or safety needs. You need, I'm making up numbers, but at the end of the day, $25 million. And based on a scoring system, this is the most important project that you have, which is where it gets tricky, right? You're trying to say, is safety more or less important than drainage? They're kind of intertwined, and you got to come up with something. But at some level, Brian's got to put pencil to paper and say, even if you wanted, let's say you wanted to start tackling that list, what's really available? Because the money to pay for the projects comes out of different pockets. The water main gets replaced by the water utility, which is funded by your water bill. Similarly for the sewer, similarly for the storm sewer utility. The streets and safety improvements are paid for out of taxes. So it's, the math part is easy. The tricky part for the committees and the board is not so much identifying, these are the things we want to do, is how are you going to fund them and how many you can pick per year, or 5-year period. So the first step we suggest is give us some guidance on, tonight would be great, but next meeting's fine too. Does the scoring system seem about right? Or are we out of whack? And specifically, you know, if the road is at a 3 or less, it gets 3 points. If there's a safety problem, it gets 1 right now. So it's things like that. Do those smell bad or not? No pride of authorship on it. And then I would ask after the meeting if you could get a look-see primarily at column AG, this ped bike. And
So for example,
No.
you know, let's say I was to look at Edge Hill on Google Maps. And if I feel the bicycle pedestrian pathway is good, then I would give it a 0.
it's just the link.
But if I feel that it's inadequate or something, then I would give it a 1.
Just give it 1.
Okay, that's easy enough.
Yeah, try to, and again, once you get a priority ranking of streets and when we put costs on it, and this committee and finance and the board all says, you know what, we need to do something, but boy, we can't afford $25 million in 1 year. We can afford 500,000 in a year. Then a project would get selected from this list. And then we dive into the weeds on, this got a average of 1.3 score on all these columns. What do we want to do with it? And Tim and I can give you some ideas on what we would suggest from a safety standpoint, from a drainage standpoint, from a water main standpoint. And that's where you get into the finer details of 5 or 6 fire hydrants. What does safety mean? Does it mean speed humps, or does it mean sidewalks, or does it mean both, or none of the above? So I guess in summary, I would suggest we'll get the best overall rough product, starting simple and then drilling down as we get towards the village potentially selecting. Because there's a number of steps other than just, does it need work? You've got, not every street needs some work, but a lot of your streets have some deficiency, either surface or underground or safety.
Can I ask a logistical question? So I'm just looking at this now. I'm on the thing. I thought it was like a live shared thing, but are we individually inputting everything we can? And
Secret ballot.
Okay.
And
I didn't-
then what I would,
Okay, I misunderstood.
what I would normally do is then I would just assume you all have an equally valid opinion and then take an average. So the average safety score is going to be somewhere between 0 and 1. And we'll just round it and just get started on a ranking order. Because at some level, given you got more than 100 options of places to invest in infrastructure, we got to start weeding out something. Otherwise,
If I can make a suggestion for how I approached it as well, because we're being asked to look specifically at the pedestrian bike improvements. And so one way I've thought about it is kind of to think holistically, and because it's just not realistic. There's no world where we'll get a sidewalk and a bike lane in every single street and throughout the whole village. It's not going to happen. But, you know, imagine yourself in a world where the sidewalk on Columbia doesn't exist, but you think that it does. So look for all the segments that are Columbia, and you might want to suggest that those be a 1, because you recognize that that's a route to school. It's a kind of like an arterial for students getting to school. So that's an example of how you might approach it. That's certainly what I was thinking about, is like, you know, I can't put a sidewalk on every street. So, you know, what makes the most sense as far as where people are going to be walking to get to the school or McKenna Park or other areas of interest. So, yeah, Tom.
Actually, I have a one-track mind.
Lake Meadow Drive.
Sure.
Lake Meadow Drive was repaved in two segments. And one segment was they added something to the top and you're continually having to fill in holes, which is very dangerous. So how do you locate that on this, which takes all of Lake Meadow Drive as a whole? When two parts of it, the east and the west, are good. The middle part is dangerous.
Give it a danger, give it a one.
It's broken to segments,
Yeah,
correct, Brian?
it's
It's broken into tiny
So
segments.
like.
That's why it's a lot
I
of
want
work.
to take tiny,
Probably like-
Yeah, that one maybe
segments.
could have
Yeah,
been,
Lake-
yeah.
Yeah, Lake Mendota, we put together a little bit.
There are a couple rather
Yeah.
known segments for that
But
one.
when in doubt, give it a point.
Okay. The second is related to your comment.
Oh.
When we talk about pedestrian, the survey was actually interesting in its wording because it didn't say Sud. And are we going to spend time thinking about options? So that we're not always thinking of pouring concrete. I say that because I think if you had aesthetically interesting and environmentally friendly ways of producing a pedestrian place that was not pouring concrete, we probably would get more of an agreement than the hostility. You may not have felt it, but there were people there who were very hostile. And there are other people who were very supportive. So are we going to talk not just about concrete, but about how we make it pedestrian friendly in a way that maintains the aesthetic of the village? That may sound loaded, it's not meant to be.
I certainly hope, go ahead.
Yeah, oh, you go ahead, yeah.
I would certainly hope so. That's been the village's expectation as long as we've worked here. And I think that should be your expectation of us, is that we've got better, more than just or those types of questions though. And I was the one who gets the credit or blame for the question wording.
The wording was actually very good. In that
I'm glad you noticed. I thought,
I didn't. notice.
because there's lots of tools in the toolbox. You have a complete streets ordinance resolution. That specifically says this is important to us. We want to be creative. Once we get to, yes, we want to do a project. That's where we roll our sleeves up and come to this group with, okay, here are three different options for how this, I'll pick on Lake Mendota, how Lake Mendota, this stretch of Lake Mendota could look. And we give you pros and cons, and then we kind of work our way down that list, but it without going through this just broad strokes effort first, you never quite get to doing something about it, because you spend a lot of time and effort at this stage when it's just not critical yet. We've done, they didn't get a lot of traction, which is fine. But on the east side, when those projects were coming through, every July, this is what we did in the past. We don't have to do it now. We walked the project with a clipboard, and I would call out, this huge tree here, it's really causing narrowing. People like the tree, or they want on-street parking. And we just talked about it, and I'd make notes, and then I'd come back the next month with, all right, here's a version of that. So on Yale, we went around a tree, and then we widened it out after we got past it. On University Bay Drive, we had several options that were asphalt or rubberized asphalt sidewalks on U Bay. There were a couple of reasons they weren't selected, but each street's, particularly here, is just so unique. And each stretch of the street is so unique that it really demands that kind of minutia. But here we're talking big picture, big picture, big picture. And with a little luck, we could get, the costing part is easy. Tim and I know within a couple $100 how much it costs to rebuild the street. It's not that difficult. Tricky part will be for you all to just provide us some feedback initial. And then we can rank them and then you can just smell test. Like, yeah, I think this one should move up, which is totally fine. But this will be a good way to just kind of screen out some of that and take some of the streets that just don't, and just let's get them out of the discussion for now. Those are 15 years from now, 25 years from now, but these 5 rose to the top, and let's start fine tuning those and then figuring out how to pay for them and when they can fit in your budget.
All right, Austin, you have a question?
Yeah, I guess this one's more for Brian. You asked our opinion on the scoring system. I think it's a good system and dynamic for the village, like for the reasons you just stated. Every stretch is a little different and it gives you a nicer picture of each segment rather than looking at the street as an entire area. But I'm just kind of curious with your background and involvement in other communities and stuff, what is there a standard out there? Like what does the DOT or Madison use when they're grading and setting a priority? Is there like an industry standard out there and that we should also consider looking at, or is it kind of Wild West out there on these capital planning
It's a
projections?
bit Wild West. This scoring system is one that we've had some decent luck with. Honestly, the more sophisticated the community, the more we've seen some infighting between water utility and streets department. And they have their own budgets and their own staff, and street says we should do Main Street and water says we got a bad water main here. So this has been a pretty decent way to wade into the weeds and at least get you started.
Oh.
And,
Okay.
and then our next step would be, all right, here's what we're thinking. And if you all see some street that's way down and that's weird, I really think that wasn't important, then we just move it up. You don't, it's your list. You don't have to have any real good reason for it, but this is a good way to at least wade into the conversation. We found.
Great, appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, so we will revisit this at hopefully the next meeting.
And I will,
Possibly.
I'll just resort this now that I'm thinking about it. I should have done this already. I'll resort it alphabetically so you can see the individual blocks of each road there. You're not bouncing around.
That's great.
And then resend it and then just do it on your own time. There are individual spreadsheets. Everybody gets their own. So do it at your own leisure and Tim and I'll consolidate everything and report back.
Give good instructions about what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. When in doubt, only fill in the green column. And your only choices are 0 and 1.
So this will be a great tool, I think, for us as we're thinking about, like you said, if you only have $1, what should we spend it on? So we have limited resources. This will help the village immensely as we're trying to steward the money that we have to rebuild the streets that need it the most. And it also gives us an opportunity to make improvements if improvements are wanted by the community, instead of just rebuilding it exactly as it is. So, all right, so I think we'll move on to item number 10. So item number 10 is discussion possible action on a 3-way stop at Lake Mendota Drive and Edge Hill Drive. So let me just intro this agenda item by talking a little bit about the town hall meeting that we had. So we had that a couple weeks ago. It was really well attended. We had probably 30-ish people come out from the community. We spent a little over an hour talking, hearing from members of the community. Everyone was really, really civil. There were lots of different opinions, but people had a great rapport with one another as we were discussing these issues. I got a lot of positive feedback from members of the community. Brian certainly thought it was a very helpful and healthy meeting for the community. Trustees came up and said, we need to have more of this kind of engagement as a community. So I think that was a great success. So I did kind of split this into 2 agenda items. And the rationale for that is we had been talking about a certain number of interventions like speed humps, road narrowing, et cetera. We had focused on some of those things with both the survey that Brian created as well as with the options and plans that we had been discussing as a committee and what we had presented to the community at this town hall. We had not been talking about this particular agenda item, which is a stop sign at this intersection, but it was one that came up at that meeting. Lots and lots of residents. It was overwhelmingly well received, this idea. There is a crosswalk there. So there, actually, Brian, is it possible you could bring that up? I could see you're already trying to do that. So the idea is that we would make this a three-way stop sign at this T intersection between these two streets. This obviously would break up the continuous segment of Lake Mendota Drive into further segmentations. I mean, we have that stop sign at Lake Mendota Drive and Edge Hill Parkway, and I forget what the other cross street is. Is it Sumac? Yeah. So, and then this would add another stop sign. So the community members really, really like that idea. It would also be very low cost to put in stop signs. And then the last reason why I decided to break this out as a separate agenda item before we get into the meat of the issue with Lake Mendota Drive is that if we were to make a recommendation to put stop signs at this intersection, so you can see how there is no stop sign when you're moving either east or west along Lake Mendota Drive, but there is a stop sign coming off of Edge Hill. So if we were to put stop signs, it would require 3 ordinance readings in front of the Board of Trustees, unlike the other things that we are discussing. And so because it's low cost, because it would require ordinance readings, and because of how overwhelmingly popular it was, we decided it makes sense to kind of split it out, treat it as separately, so that if this committee wants to make this recommendation, it can go to the board and begin that multi-month ordinance process. So for those who were at the event, you heard all this. For those of you who weren't, hopefully that's a good enough summary of what we're talking about here is putting 2 stop signs there. I see the nice little stick figure stop signs. So what do you guys think about putting stop signs at this intersection? So we're looking at coming down the hill on Lake Mendota Drive to where it meets the bridge. So what are the thoughts of the committee members?
Would it be both directions or just one?
Yeah, so I think Brian has tried to draw 2 little stop signs there with the stop line. And then right where the far side one is, there is a painted pedestrian crosswalk. So
I
like the idea.
I personally think it's a great idea, and it's a neat opportunity to see what it does overall to speeds around there.
I like it particularly because it came from, people that were here. They almost felt like it was a no-brainer and they were surprised there wasn't a stop sign yet there. And they also pointed out, if you have the map again, Brian, that there's very poor visibility coming down Edge Hill. You don't really see what's coming from behind the bend. And if those people don't have to stop, like you could really, it's a safety hazard.
Yeah, I don't
I guess
see any.
the only question is like, what kind of stop sign would you want to put a standard there, or is it, since we have an opportunity to like maybe look at different options, what type of stop sign would you want, and is it going to get covered by foliage or anything else? It might be an opportunity to do something like a blinking one in a certain area, or like additional warning of slow down, reminder of keeping speed at throughout that stretch.
thank you, Austin. Christine, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's low cost, easy intervention to see if that's helpful. I think you could do the flags on it too, since it's gonna be new. But I think anywhere that's kind of low visibility and you force people to pause is a win.
Thanks, Christine. Tom, did you?
I also, we had talked about stop signs once, not necessarily this, and I thought it was really a good idea. But also, they also pointed out it's where you go down to the boathouse.
Mm.
So that also it has a lot of traffic. And so I don't know about a flashing sign because there are people who are living there and they might have. But I think it's basically, it's a nice.
Bob, how do you feel about it?
No, I agree. I think it'd be nice to have stop signs there. What does that, what kind of length of, or what kind of distance do we have then? Where there'll be no other like, way to slow people down?
Maybe that would be a question for Brian. I know, what Brian has told me is that stop signs are not the best speed,
Right.
top line speed control measures because people who want to speed, they will just go at a high rate of speed between stop signs. So as compared to, for instance, a speed hump that might reduce some of those top line speeds, just because if you go over them, at a certain speed, you'll damage your car. But if you have a good spacing of it.
There was also a comment of people who live by the stop signs that kept saying, people don't stop.
Yeah,
I think some people do stop, but there are a lot of people who roll through relatively.
It'd be about 1,400 feet to the village limit. At that
Going
point,
east.
and there's no stop sign there.
Going
Going east, yes, sir. And just the reason I say that is the distance from Four Corners to Lake Mendota Drive is about 1,400 feet, just to give you some scale.
about the same.
But right now it's over a mile, I think, from to the next stop sign once you go through past the village limits and.
And there, again, the people who live at that end of the street were most of the comments were about people coming up from the university up the hill and how they're speeding. So this would also, I want to reduce that speed, but it would reduce them when they get to that corner.
It
Yeah, I
was
mean,
mentioned, same thing at
Sorry.
Wood Lane also. And then I wanted to point out, I don't know who's been involved with Mary Fish, who lives at Edge Hill in Wood Lane. She has been very vocal at having a three-way stop put at that intersection. So I'm not worried, but I'm thinking that if she sees these go in, she's really gonna want them at that intersection. So just something to put in the back of your heads that you're setting a precedent here. There may be more going up if that's the way you want to go. She's very concerned with that hill. People coming up over that hill. She thinks if the stop sign would go there at Wood Lane, would slow that down. So I've already added 2 speed limit signs and a caution driveway sign there. And she still thinks more needs to be done, so.
I had one comment too, since we're looking at this stretch, I taking all the Lake Mendota feedback, with folks coming up from the cove and that dangerous crest over that hill where they're either coming down quick and around that edge or going up. And I realize we can only control up to our limits, and the rest is university or Madison. Is this an opportunity right now to look at that crest and slow down that segment? Right at that crest by is it the Meanwell's house? Yeah, the Meanwell group down there.
Isn't there a speed hump?
To me, that's one of the most dangerous sections in the entire village area, at least for pedestrians coming, narrow and fast and it's blind.
And blind.
And I realize you can't necessarily put a stop sign on the top of a hill because winter and snow and whatnot, but just looking for ideas or opportunities there both ways. Just to me, it's a scary area to walk, but a lot of people use it anyway. So
Do we want to take it a step further and maybe suggest one for Wood Lane and then one for Edge Hill? Where they'd be farther enough apart where, you know, it wouldn't be like a nuisance stop sign?
I feel like they'd be close enough that they would be a nuisance stop sign.
Mhm.
It, on first blush, I know she would really like one.
I've always hoped
I
for
just-
something like a, some kind of warning with that curve or some kind of pedestrian safety signage in there. I don't know what would be most appropriate though, to be honest.
were you thinking an additional set of stop signs on Lake Mendota at Wood or on
Mhm.
Edge Hill?
Oh, one at Edge Hill and then one at Wood. That'd be
Yeah, I think-
close, wouldn't it?
I think it'd be,
I'd be more interested.
from what
in
you've got in the village right now, that'd be a lot of stop signs.
Yeah.
Generally, it just doesn't mean you have to act like your ancestors. The village has been pretty averse to what was once described to me as a sign forest. And just kind of a general, unless we need a sign, we should just put them up for funsies. So you don't have a lot of stop signs. You don't have it. As far as like stop signs per acre, it's quite a bit lower than you'd see in a traditional neighborhood elsewhere. But it's totally your guys' call.
Yeah,
It seemed like this one, or the one
Right.
at Edge Hill was a lot of support, and the one at Wood was mostly a one-off.
yeah, my opinion is, we don't want to get too much feature creep. We've been kind of vetting a plan for Lake Mendota Drive for quite a long time now. And, and including getting a lot of resident feedback where overwhelmingly positive for this particular stop sign at Edge Hill and Lake Mendota Drive. So I would keep an open mind about a stop sign that would, but it's it's not a mature idea yet, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. So any other thoughts? Okay, we have a motion from Tom. What is your motion, Tom? You want,
Good question.
yeah,
That we add, two stop signs, like the three ways. Stop sign.
so I'll try to clean that up a little bit for you if that's
Well, there
okay.
should be one on, one going on going west, east
Mhm.
at the bridge, and the other going east, west at Edge Hill and Lake Mendota Drive.
Yep.
Which is what you had.
So if I could make a suggested language for that. So
Fine, I like it.
we're making a recommendation to the board to convert the intersection of Lake Mendota Drive and Edge Hill, to the Edge Hill what? Edge Hill Drive. Okay, thank you. To a three-way stop. Does that sound clear enough?
But there is one there now.
There is one side, so,
Just for northbound Edge Hill.
so if we convert it to a three-way stop, that would be clear enough what the recommendation is. Okay, so that's so we have a motion. Bob is seconding that motion. So any further discussion about this motion? Okay, so let's vote. So if you're in favor of the motion, raise your hand or say aye. Okay. Motion carries. So we are recommending to the board, put a three-way stop sign there. So, all right, so now we have item 11. So I'm just keeping track of time. We're at 6:28. Like to be adjourned by 7, especially because Brian has another meeting to go to.
There's a big.
I heard about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
I may have to step out just a bit before 7 because I have a babysitter.
okay, yeah, thank you. All right, so we have discussion possible action on Lake Mendota Drive Town Hall and survey results. So I already did a little introduction about my feelings on the town hall. So I think we can probably just turn it over to Brian to talk about the survey and kind of how he's thinking about this feedback, and we'll just go from there.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Which follows what you were saying. All the feedback I got and my own feeling, you guys were there, were, while there was a lot of different ideas, people were very, very considerate of other people. It was really a very good discussion about the issues.
Mhm.
The major issue that came up continually, which we talked about, was the lack of enforcement in the village, not just on Lake Mendoza Drive. And I want to thank you for following through on that, because we finally have seen some police cars, not enough, I'm gonna say. But that was continually being, I don't know how you guys felt.
I agree.
Um, people felt that we had no police force. And I think that's important. And that, this is my question to you. There was earlier a motion that we have the police chief come. What happened with that?
So your question, I think your motion was to have the police chief, and this actually predates me, right? So the motion was to invite the police chief to attend meetings, and we have invited him to attend. We've told him he's always welcome. We did tell him that because we had received the speed data and Brian was able to interpret that we didn't necessarily need his assistance for that, which is my understanding of where we were at with that. Now, I will say enforcement. So if residents have problems with enforcement, that would more fall under the Public Health and Safety Committee than it would under Public Works. And we did have a discussion at the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting most recently about that particular issue as well. Brian, I know, has been taking a lot of this resident feedback and talking with the police department about how the residents are feeling about enforcement. So I would just say to this committee and to the residents, your voices have been heard, and the village is addressing that. Would you say that's accurate, Brian? Okay, so you know, I'm glad that you brought that up. It's obviously very concerning to me to hear all that talk about enforcement and residents feeling frustrated. It's not necessarily something that this committee would be looking at, but the village is taking that seriously and looking at it. So
I have a question though. In the prior traffic committee, which was merged into here,
Mhm.
the police captain chief came because a lot, like the issues on Lake Mendoza Drive, but the issues that came up at the meeting relate to the traffic mandate of this committee. So why, how does that division of authority in terms of the committee function? Should he also be available when we have issues coming up to this committee when that's not purview to this committee? That's what I heard.
if we're talking specifically about enforcement, I would say that's public health and safety.
Okay.
But we did, we work with the Short Hills Police Department. One of the first things when I became chair of this committee is working with the sheriff, the chief. We're just throwing out titles. Working with the chief to get that speed collection data on Lake Mendota Drive, and so we were able to get that pretty quickly. So we worked together on that, but it wasn't necessarily something where once we had the data, Brian was able to go over it. It wasn't necessarily something that we needed. Sherwood Hills Police
Enforcement
Department.
It's different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
I had a question. I'd raise my hand here.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, so this is again back to police and enforcement, and I understand that we have two different committees completely, but I think it's interesting that we've never had, well, maybe I haven't seen it, maybe it's behind the scenes, but I've never seen the actual feedback and perspective from Sherwood's, police force and, and the captain there. Yet we're making policy decisions kind of and directives. I'm really curious from his perspective, what he would see as most effective or potentially just given the background they have.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, this is probably more of a comment for Brian Mooney is, I'm sure the residents will be eagerly wanting to know that their voices are being heard and the actions being taken. So, that's probably something that Brian will address in the future, I'm guessing. I did see that the police department did post on their social media accounts that they're increasing enforcement around the school over the next 2 weeks. And I did see them out there today. So hopefully that presence is what the residents want to see, and hopefully that continues. So, all right, I think we can let Brian take it over from here and go over the feedback.
So, we lean heavily on a online platform called Survey123 that is leveraged off your GIS software. That you've maintained a membership on that for a decade or more. And it's great for this kind of stuff. As desires arise from all kinds of trying to solicit specific feedback. One of the neat things about it is it does have the ability for people to just simply click on a map and type something. So some communities use this as their pothole reporting system, and generate an email. So all of the formatting and cool graphs and everything is from them. But just to kind of broad stroke things, pretty good results as far as participation. We got 160 folks filling out a survey. The first question was, are you in favor of a project to implement traffic calming and bike pedestrian initiatives? And that was pretty overwhelmingly yes. Obviously, some of the comments we got there were, well, not if it costs $1 million, or not if it means not doing this other project, which you're going to get. But in general, I would say quite solid support. Then we went into some of the specific suggestions that were on that concept sketch. The first one was, are you supportive, opposed, or no opinion to street narrowing in select locations? No majority there. There was some concern on the impact that narrowing would have on parking stall availability for the marina. I'm not sure we were able to effectively communicate to everyone that it would just be short pieces, kind of like Bay Drive has, which would admittedly reduce parking stalls by probably 5. And when you have 30 stalls, that's not nothing. So that was some of the commentary we received there.
You're doing the survey or you're doing the commentary from?
This is just survey results, just online survey results.
Okay, because at the meeting, I was surprised how people were against the narrow.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not sure if they really understood what we were thinking there, but if they don't like there, that's okay. This was probably my biggest surprise of the effort was, what do you think of a series of speed bumps? A majority was in fact supportive. Follow up, what we'll get to later is, what do you mean by speed humps, and how many are we talking about? And God, I hope they're not the edge hill ones, or God, I hope they're the edge hill ones, and I hope you put in 100 of them. So that's where things really got split a little bit more, but generally support.
One thing that really helped me a lot was a couple meetings back, you explained that each speed bump is kind of rated as to what percentage of do they slow down the cars.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be helpful if people knew that. Even questioning, would you like to see the cars, slow down to 15 miles an hour? And if we do
We're
that,
getting close to that. It's coming up.
well,
Yes, because it's kind of a loaded question.
yeah,
There's 1,000 different types. Another one that I wasn't expecting was some general supports for an off-street pedestrian accommodation. Like what we talked about earlier, made no mention of, and we'll cut down 400 trees. No, who knows if you can even, or it's gotta be really, really narrow, like the Madison version. And there was good amount of comments of kind of split down the middle of, I love what Madison did. I hate what Madison, did. Very little ambivalence on that. But this one was also not what I was expecting. Complete street reconstruction was one that we had tossed out as, you know, once you in for a penny, there's a lot of other things you could do if you're already not spending, you know, $500,000 on stuff. But generally, not a whole lot of excitement for that. Then we asked folks if you were interested in speed bumps, what ones do you prefer? Do you prefer we call them the 25-mile-an-hour ones, the Madison style, or the ones on Edge Hill? Generally, pretty decent support for the 25-mile-an-hour ones that, and not ripping down to the.
Is there an option? I mean, you didn't do it here. But I'm making an empirical observation. The 25 is in effect, maybe this comes later in the discussion, but 25 in effect is to say the speed limit in road is 25, which is for pedestrians and bicyclists and runners, not too high. But is there something in between when you're doing the engineering of these speed humps? So that it's not 25, but you're not having the edge hill because people don't want the edge hill.
It's not so much you're not going to get 25, but not get edge hill. It is if people really wanted 20, it's edge hill. But since it seems like, I don't know if this is a proxy for I hate edge hill or I really am comfortable with 25 miles an hour or none of the above, but because it wasn't flip flopped, like that's the tricky part. If I want 20 miles an hour and I hate edge hill, that's the only thing that'll get it.
But I'm saying, is there something like you can engineer it so let's say,
Yeah, we can.
so it's not 25, but
Yeah.
it's not 20 either.
Yes,
Somewhere lower.
definitely we would probably could. That's definitely possible. It's just a number.
I know.
You know, it's 2.5 inches instead of 2 or that kind of thing. What gets tricky, impossible for Tim and I, is this will give you 24.8 miles an hour, and this one will give you 23, because it's who lives on the road, how good are their shots, and how late are they for class or work or what have you. But generally, when we call it a 25-mile-an-hour, it's because that geometry generally, the Madison geometry generally gets you to the 85th percentile of 25 miles. It does not lop off the silly people that are going to go for 45. You can take these at 45 and just get a little ride out of it. But it gets generally most people to 25. And if that's what you're comfortable with, the one thing that the committee has struggled with a bit in the past on speed humps and this desired speed is your speeds on, and even on Lake Mendota, I think we're like 27 measured for this one study. So they struggled a bit with the investment to just get a 2-mile-an-hour change, but that's the policy call. Yes. So it looked like Edge Hill, no, thank you. Yeah, I would, this, which is fine. This was just a free type, and then it kind of makes a word splatter diagram on what's on people's minds. Some of the most common words, which were speed bumps and Edge Hill. So it was a short and sweet one. It was meant to be hopefully a 30-second exercise to get as many folks as we could. I had fantasy of filling in survey results while people talked. To like give them a survey, and that fell apart quickly because not everybody wanted to fit in my boxes. And I panicked a little bit because I thought, well, some of them may have already put a survey in, and so and then I just typed. And that was in the response stuff on Excel.
Did you break it down to Lake Mendota Drive, how those people responded?
I did not. Okay,
But we have
yeah, we did.
we have self-identified,
Yeah, no, I went and I counted. And it was interesting results, because it was not as clear as I thought.
I have a question, ask a question. In terms of getting these surveys out, I found just generally, I've been in Shorewood for 2 years and I'm friends with a lot of people who are somewhat newer. That people often don't know about anything that's going on. So I saw it on the Nixle, even being part of this committee. I missed the last meeting, but that was the only way I knew about it was on the Nixle. I know tons of people don't have that. And so as soon as I saw it, I posted it on Facebook. I texted everybody I knew in the village. I said, send this to everybody you know. And I'm really big on like spreading the word because I don't think people are really participating in the conversations or even aware of it. And something like this is so easy that I think everyone that I did reach out to was like, yeah, like takes 2 seconds. So I'd love to, when it's appropriate, sort of brainstorm ways to really push this stuff out.
well, that's something that is not, it's a problem that's not specific just to this committee. It's
Mhm.
something that the whole village government is struggling with. It was a topic of discussion at the last board meeting. As we're kind of brainstorming as trustees, what can we do to improve the communication? Some of the things we're talking about are a new website, even as simple as mailing a postcard to everyone in the village for critical updates. It's not that expensive to do that.
Mm.
Yeah,
Like a QR code,
exactly.
like posting
Yes.
QR codes too around the
Yes.
neighborhood would be pretty easy.
If I can add, one of the things that we're in the process of doing currently is putting together first or upcoming village town hall forum meeting with residents. So right now, village staff are putting together a postcard mailer with a QR code, and the QR code will take you to the Nixle registration site. So everybody can be aware of how they can become more informed on future village meetings, and all of the various committee meetings that are offered within the village take place. I think we identified October 2nd for the town hall forum. It'll be right here in Village Hall, but the postcards have been asked to go to friends. So you'll probably be receiving those within the next week and a half, 2 weeks.
Oh, great. That sounds wonderful. Thanks.
So is that gonna go to every residential unit?
That's
Including-
every
including
known
apartments?
address that receives physical mail. We'll put it on the website as well, and we will probably follow up with a Nixle alert with it as well.
Yeah.
Try to get all avenues taken care of so everyone's aware of this first one.
Great.
As an aside, I just did a quick query if you go down Lake Mendota Drive. So that's one of the neat things about the software. You can search or sort it in each way. So, yeah. Not exactly in line with community response as well. And we never know, nor do we know the right answer. Is what if one house only has one response and one house has 2 adults and they both respond, and small sample sizes of that. So that's I guess
Just
that's
a quick comment, just driving down the new section of Lake Mendota the other day. I take my kids to piano there once a week, so I know we talked briefly about this, but the idea of like a roundabout was thrown out, and I think some people think of the larger DOT roundabouts, but I observed the one that Madison put in at Norman Way and University. I actually took some pictures of it, but I'm curious if that might be a topic of discussion or integrated into this traffic calming in the future for Lake Mendota.
Yeah, that's a great question, Austin. So given that we're 11 minutes
Yeah.
till 7, I don't think we're at the point where we have a fully fledged plan to recommend to the board. But it does also lead into the next agenda item, which is the frequency of committee meetings, which is something I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say.
And I ask a
But
question related to the next meeting, but.
Yeah.
Where people said they didn't want to narrow, what if we put a roundabout there? That work?
You've got this enough space for one like at Norman, like a mini, almost like a traffic circle.
The
thing.
reason I asked if we could bring it to the next meeting at one of.
We can certainly sketch one up, for sure. And I guess to be fair to be clear, even though, if this committee decides we're doing a project and we decide, thanks for input, we're gonna investigate narrowing further. The committee has done that in the past, just so you're aware, it doesn't have to be a dead end. But yeah, I think there's room there for some, like a Norman Way style. It gets really wide.
That's a form of narrowing too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
It just seems like another nice tool in the infrastructure plan of calming. And it, from just a construction perspective, it does not look that involved on cost. I mean, compared to, it's probably about the same as a speed bump.
Okay. We have a couple more minutes if anyone wants to share any more thoughts about the town hall and just the way we're going to approach this at most likely the next meeting. Any other thoughts?
just a very quick one. It was clear that the issue of traffic in the village, even as we deal with, like, drivers one, that it's good that it's one of our major objectives, because it was clear from that meeting how people were disturbed.
Yeah, it's clearly an essential part of the through traffic in the village because it's one of the main routes. So, all right, well, I think we will just finish this agenda item where we're at right now, but we'll take it up next time as far as what we're thinking about how to approach this, how are we digesting the feedback that we've got from the residents, and how do we make kind of a cohesive plan for the next steps. Sounds like you're gonna look into a couple things like a mini roundabout. Yeah, okay. All right, so agenda item 12, discussion on frequency of committee meetings. So I know you all are probably feeling the same way as I am, that it's not ideal to have hour and a half, 2 hour committee meetings. It's a very large amount of information, and maybe we just got a swell of things to deal with in recent months. But one option is we could consider switching to a monthly schedule. That would allow us to have hopefully shorter meetings. For instance, the PHS, the Public Health and Safety meeting, last one I went to, it was about 25 minutes, 30 minutes long. And then it would also give us a flexibility where if, for instance, we just don't have a lot of topics for discussion leading in the weeks leading up to our monthly, if we switch to a monthly meeting, we could also just postpone it and say, it doesn't make sense to meet. If we're only going to talk about one thing, we can kick it off to the next meeting. So what do you think about going to a monthly schedule? and trying to have our meetings be shorter and more focused.
I've got a thought on it. I mean, personally, I think, yeah, like if you shortening the agenda and the way we process through the items, and I know there's a certain compliance with open meeting laws and stuff, but finding a way to expedite some of that and then potentially identifying, we have to meet quorum every time too, right? So that's a concern. But maybe looking at monthly with a shorter hybrid option, so everyone's not coming in on some of those lower meetings, and then having a quarterly larger town hall type or larger setup to tackle some of those bigger issues that you're not going to get through in an hour.
How many people do you need for quorum?
What's that?
How many people do you need for quorum?
So we would need 4 members out of the 7. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to say, if we take seriously your, I don't know whether your first or second meeting, we developed 3 major items. Each of them require, at least initially, a lot of discussion. I just think of the traffic reduction in calming, that we really need to get a sense of the village, how it's laid out. That doesn't come in these we need sustained time. Same thing with this street construction and so on. So I think initially, if we're going to pursue those 3 major things, we do need to meet more often, and then maybe not need those meetings, but at least now, seems to me we do. And I'll go overseas for a couple of months and I'll tell you you'll tell me how the meetings went.
Bob, do you have any feelings about potentially meeting more frequently?
I think I'm fine either way. I'm fine meeting every other month for an hour and a half, or if we did like bring it back down to a month, I think it might be nice if we agreed that, we never go further than an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think part of this should be that we commit to trying to end the meetings sooner. And part of it will be helped by just having fewer things on the agenda by spreading it out. But yeah, we also as members have to commit to, respecting one another's time. So, all right, well, I think that's good feedback. I'll talk to Brian Mooney about that, because that's obviously gonna take up staff time, and so that's another consideration. But this committee, I believe, has met monthly in the past, so it wouldn't be an unprecedented change, but just considering how long our meetings have been going, it might be something we could consider for the near future. So, okay.
And maybe you could take agenda items like Terry's update. Like, I don't know if he wants or needs to give an update monthly. Some of these items could be quarterly or every other week, or every other month is what I meant. So just you are shortening the duration, shorten the agenda in that same way.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that, Terry, is you wouldn't need
I've
to.
asked before if I could just send it out to you guys, and then if you
Yeah.
have questions on it.
Yeah.
Either way.
Let's try that.
Yeah, you and I can talk and we can decide what the best way is, but yeah, okay. All right. So we're now on number 13, future agenda items. So we do have a long list here.
Next week.
And so this is an opportunity for you guys to request additional items be added to a future agenda. Is there any requests, or are we good with the set that we currently have? We can try to work through that.
I just wanted to add that stop sign one that we discussed earlier about potentially just looking at options on usage of that stop sign at Rose Place and University. I'm sorry, the no turn on red.
The no turn on red.
Yeah, that's
So-
literally just looking at possibilities to like ease some of the backup there during non-critical business hours. And during heavy traffic, just late at night, say after 9 p.m. or something. I'll leave it up to the traffic engineers to decide what would be best, but looking at amending that sign to no turnout red at these hours, which is fairly common, I think, in some parts of the city and other communities.
Okay, so I believe we've got that recorded, Julie, that got a recommendation for the no turn on red. Any other future agenda items?
No,
Yeah,
just related to that, because when you mentioned it, and I think I wrote a note to you and also to Paul when he was here.
Mhm.
The bicycle sign over on Spring Harbor, would that Austin also solve the problem? They have this on Spring Harbor.
Okay.
They have a sign which restricts turns for a while because of bicyclists, and then it lets people make instead of putting hours.
So what
Yeah,
you're
I mean, that's a
describing,
good question. Man, I thought about that a lot because I know Madison put a lot of thought into this BRT plan and probably did some pedestrian studies. So I don't have a good answer, but it might alleviate that. But like I said, I've got really big concerns about that intersection with my kids and just myself walking that way a lot. And I do agree that the turn on red is, it's very dangerous there. But at the same time, you roll up to that intersection and like 9 or 10 at night and there's nobody around, and like, or a Sunday morning at like 6 a.m. It's like, why can't I turn red right here? And just, otherwise you're waiting sometimes a 5-minute cycle on those lights or something. Maybe it's not 5 minutes, it's probably like 3 or 4 minutes, but it just seems to have a little bit of flexibility there. It might be nice, but I'd like to refer that one to the experts.
yep, okay, thank you, Austin. I think that's the end of the agenda.
And the like.
So currently our next regular meeting date is scheduled for Tuesday, November 12th, at 5:30 p.m. But we may, talk with staff about potentially switching to a monthly schedule, so. All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Tim, do we have a second for adjourning? All those in favor? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. See you.
Hey, Austin. Bye, Austin.
Go to another meeting then? Oh. Oh. Yeah.